Welcome to Brazen Education with Educator Barnes, a podcast with a focus on speaking your truth, being transparent to help others, and having no shame about it. Because we can't move forward until the truth is known. Welcome back to another episode of Brazen Education. On this episode, we're going to talk about Black excellence. And today with me, I have our guest, Marlon Llewellyn. He is currently the Director of Recruitment and Strategic Partnership for Marian University's CLIPS Educator College. Marlon, welcome to our show.
Thank you so much for having me, Shantae. Appreciate it.
Well, it wasn't very important for me to talk about Black excellence, but it was also important for me to have that conversation during Black Excellence Month. If you follow me, you know that I say that Black excellence, Black history is 365 days a year, 366 days if it's a leap year. And that is an ongoing conversation. But many times Black history becomes kind of like this situation where we just talk about like Black trauma and Black sadness. Mm-hmm. And I want to focus our conversation on Black excellence, Black achievement. And to have this conversation, I wanted to bring on someone who has exuded Black excellence and who is also championing and promoting and trying to get other people to participate in Black excellence. So, Marlon, how do you define what Black excellence is? And how do you define that for educators? And how do you define that for staff?
First, I want to say thank you, Shantae, once again for having me. And also thank you to everyone who's listening on this conversation. You're doing some great work here on the Brazen Education podcast. So I'm just super excited. So what my kids say now, I'm uber excited. So I define, when I thought about this, I define Black excellence really around access and opportunity. I tell my kids this all the time. You get two things every morning. You get a choice and a chance, right? And those choices and the chance that you get, you have to maximize those choices and chances that you get. And so when I look at Black excellence, it's all about, for me, access and opportunity. Once we have the access, we have to make sure we maximize opportunity. And so I know with Shantae, myself, and some other leaders I work with, we've been able to just maximize the opportunity. Once you get the access, maximize opportunity and put your best foot forward. There's so many different thoughts around what Black excellence is, right? And I think when I think about me and my role and my life, it's about maximizing opportunities. And once you get that access, go forward and never give up.
So you represent Black excellence. I know you work at Marian University, and I know one of the things that you were tasked with doing was launching their doctoral program for their the Educators College, because previously you could earn an undergraduate degree and a bachelor's degree, and I know that is not an easy undertaking to not only lead up a program but to introduce it new to a university. But on top of that, you also have some accomplishments out here in the education world. So thinking about yourself and Black excellence, what accomplishments are you most proud of when you think about Black excellence and yourself?
And so any program you kind of launch, and I came in at the forefront of the doctoral program. And so I call the Jeffs at the university, Jeff Kaufman and Jeff Hanna, they were kind of the brainchild of this doctoral program. I came in to help with recruitment and also to amplify the program. And so it was definitely a team effort here at Marian, because we will make sure we can give the access to leaders in our state of how to become a great leader through our doctoral program. So I'll make sure I give the Jeffs of Marian University a Brazen Education shout out, right? They do some amazing work here. And I encourage anyone who's thinking about doing a doctoral program, definitely check Marian out. But I think the most accomplishment, I think the proudest accomplishments for me is just being an amazing husband and a rock star parent, right? I think I've been married going on 18 years. And I realized, man, that's a long time. But that's Black excellence to me as well. I've been married 18 years. I'm raising two amazing, successful young people. So that's some of the accomplishments I'm really proud of on a personal note, right? Well, on a professional note, I've been blessed, right? I've been blessed in the fact that I've been able to experience everything in the K-12 space. I was a teacher. I was an instructional coach. I was a dean. I was an assistant principal of instruction, assistant principal of culture. I was a principal, right? I was director. So I've been able to experience everything instead of everything in the educational space professionally. And even the opportunity I worked in a private school, public school, charter school, turnaround school, urban school, rural school, traditional school. So those are some of the, I guess, the accomplishments I'm really proud of. One, just making sure I'm taking care of my home and being a great husband and a great father. And the second accomplishment for me is just the opportunity to be successful in all the spaces in K-12.
So one the how I first learned about you is when you were a principal and the high achievement that your school obtained. Can you talk a little bit about how do you push a school? The schools on the east side of Indianapolis. How do you push a school where the students are mostly Black? How do you
Mm-hmm.
push those students to excellence when those students who were in previous schools may have been given up on and maybe be seen as a lost cause that they couldn't get to a place where they could be at a school that's rated an A school.
Yeah, I mean, once again, it came down to people and leaders, right? I was blessed to work with some amazing educators, right? Patrick Jones, who's now at the Mind Trust, Kelly Marshall, who was my CEO, who's now at the Mind Trust, Erica McGady, who now works for a K-12 organization here in the city, Megan Lewis, in my eyes is one of the best guidance counselors ever, right? So I was blessed to work with a network at Charles A. Tinley Accelerated Network, who had amazing talent. And so I just came in and followed the system that was put in place prior to me getting there, and follow the system with fidelity. That network of school, Tinley, I think it became a hotbed of talent, right? Because you had to go in, you had to be laser like focused on the plan of action. And the plan of action, and the goal was to get 100% of our kids to college. And so I just came in with that mindset to follow the system, add my little pieces to it as well, right? I'm gonna put my little swag to it, and making sure that we remove ourselves from the equation and focus solely on the improvements and the achievements of the young people that we're serving. And so some of the numbers that I was able to accomplish as a team there was we had some of the highest proficiency rate. We ain't talking about growth now. The highest proficiency rates for African American boys in the state of Indiana, and that was because of the system that was in place. And we really focused. And people say, "What's the special sauce during those times at Tinley?" I would definitely say special sauce was love, love, right? So high accountability, high expectations, covered with love. And so we loved our babies, we loved our staff, and wanted to make sure we put everything in them to make sure they could achieve great things. I think that's what you saw there at Tinley during those times.
I think a theme I'm hearing from you is that Black excellence isn't like an individual sport, it's a collective activity. Because every time I've asked you about Black excellence, you're quick to mention how you are working with other people in tandem and in community to make it happen. And you already answered the next question I was going to ask you, like, how did you make this happen? Because when you were the leader of the school, like you said, you did have one of the highest achievement for Black boys, and that is a demographic of students who tend to be labeled as students who have difficulty reading, students have difficulty focusing, students who are more likely to be suspended and expelled. And you're saying, under your leadership with this group of talented people, that you were able to kind of break these stereotypes and break these kind of assumptions that black boys can't learn. And I think, like you mentioned, is love. But I think what also is key, it wasn't just like we loved on our students. You also noted that you loved on the staff. And the
Yes.
staff is super, super, super important when it comes to working. Well, we also know many times when people talk about black excellence, you'll hear, and I heard it myself as a kid, that being a black person, you have to work twice as hard to get half as much. And so there's that mentality that you have to like be smarter, be perfect, and work harder. And sometimes that can lead us into situations where it's not healthy for us, or we stumble into roadblocks trying to be like perfect and the top of our game. So, what are some roadblocks that you have come across, either with yourself, working with staff, working with students? And then how did you work through those roadblocks? Because I think sometimes people want to achieve excellence, but when the road gets rough, they just want to get off the road. So so what barriers have you faced?
I think the biggest barrier, great question. So I think the biggest barrier I faced was myself. I had to get out of my way. What I mean by that is this, and you know this, Ante, like leading anything, especially as a black professional, is hard, right? Uh, it's just hard, right? Because people look at you like, man, how is that person having all this success? And not knowing that, oh, this person wakes up at 4:15 in the morning, does his prayers, and he's in the office at 5:30, right? Is a level of commitment that you put to that. And so the roadblocks I faced really was roadblocks that I put in front of myself based on my past experiences, right? And so in that role, it was a grown experience for me personally and professionally because I had to learn how to leave all the baggage behind from previous opportunities and previous experiences to focus my attention on what the work was. And the work was to make sure black and brown students in my school achieved at the highest level compared to their white peers. And so that was a work for me, right? And also I learned how to remove barriers. Number one was to focus my energy on the why. We hear it all the time. What's the why? What's the why? Right? And so the why for me became the people that I served, right? I knew if I was showing up authentically every day, 100% as Mr. Llewellyn, the people that I was serving and serve alongside me, they showed up as well. And so by removing some of those barriers and roadblocks that we all have, right? But it takes somebody very special to reflect on that and really understand what the true issue is. I was able to achieve some amazing work and amazing things. I won't say me. I'm big on not saying me. We were able to achieve some amazing things at Tinley because as a leader, I was able to focus myself on the work and remove myself, my personal views, my personal feelings from the work itself.
And I think that's hard because some in education, if you go through any education program, we do a lot of reflection.
Oh yeah.
How do you feel about this? How did this work? What would you do differently? But when we leave the like education space, as in us being in the role of the student, sometimes we forget that we still need that reflective
All
piece
day.
to like be like, oh, how is this impacting? And I would definitely agree with you. Like yourself can be like the biggest barrier to getting anything done, especially in this space, because sometimes things get tougher for us and you have hard times leaving things behind. Like you think because something happened at a previous job, that's going to happen at this next job. And there are totally different people, totally different views. They wanted you for a particular reason, but you're like stuck in your head. And
Yeah.
so thinking about you being a leader, what advice do you give when you're working with staff members who find themselves in that situation where you see the potential in them, you see them striving for excellence, but they are kind of stuck in the mud and can't like get back on track? Like, what do you do? Like, if you were going to give advice uh, to another black leader, like, what would you say to them to help them kind of lift up other black educators?
I want to just touch. It's hard for us to reflect while we're in the moment, right? It's hard to reflect while you're in the work. A lot of my reflection occurred after I left the role of principal, and I was like just blown away. Like, wait a minute here, wow, right? but it's very difficult to reflect and work. That's why I was teasing this superintendent. I think you need. I told superintendent one day, I say, hey, you need to give your principals like mental break days or weeks, right? For them to go somewhere secluded and to sit there and just reflect on the work, reflect on the successes, and reflect on the failures. I think that was something that was hard for me to do as a leader because I was so stuck in the work, and that became the mud, right? High achievement, high accountability. So I couldn't really enjoy and reflect on successes because I was too busy reflecting on the failures while we're in the work, right? And so it's very hard to detach ourselves from that. And I think that's why I tell a lot of leaders now I work with, hey, how do you detach yourself from the work so you can truly and honestly reflect on what's going wrong and what's going right? And you'll realize once you take that time away, you'll realize that guess what? You're doing some amazing work. There's a lot of things that are going right, then there's a lot and less things that are going wrong. So just telling leaders to try to find that time to reflect. And I had an amazing staff, as I shared with you before. I had an amazing guidance counselor. I had amazing APs. I had amazing teachers. And so a lot of our reflections came real time during the observation or during the one-on-one meeting. I had a culture and an environment that thrived on reflection so we can all get better. So I think that's very key for us to kind of try to build things, a place to reflect, decompress, and detach from it. And you'll realize you're doing some amazing work, and the thing that you're struggling with is minor.
I liked how you said that we need to reflect on like what's not going well, but what's also going well.
Yeah.
And I definitely can relate to what you're saying because when I stepped away from my role as middle school academic dean, I kind of had that same aha moment, but it really wasn't me reflecting. It was people saying like,
Yeah.
Shantae, this was great. And even a couple of days ago, I'm in, oddly enough, this group chat, some with people I used to supervise, and some with people that worked in the school that I did not supervise. And someone said in the group chat, if you open up a school, we're going to be there. And I was like, really? And then, but to hear someone else talk about, but you did this and you told us to take care of ourselves and you told us to do these things and you supported us this way. And I'm thinking about, but it was a pandemic and we didn't meet this metric and we didn't do this. And so it was just really nice and refreshing to have someone bring back to my attention, like, yeah, like everything's not going to be perfect all the time, but you did a lot of stuff well and you need to like sit with that. So when I stepped away from that role, I was really able to sit there and be like, okay, Shantae, you did a little something that was all right. And then you can kind of put that into work as you get moving forward and see have Robin with us. Hey, Robin. She says it's also important to have a cadre of teachers who will get honest feedback. And I think that is so true. And I think we also have to create the atmosphere where that honest feedback can happen. Because many times we have schools where people really want that honest feedback, but they don't get it. And interestingly enough, over the weekend, I had a teacher that I'm working with at a school, and she messaged me and said, well, Shantae, all your feedback was positive. I need some constructive criticism from you. And I was just like, and I was just so thankful that someone even asked or even pushed for that because sometimes people don't want constructive criticism or like that type of reflection. And so I actually told her I will actually go back through some of her work and really look at it at a fine tooth comb. And I think she's a phenomenal educator, which is why I have the remarks I have, because I also think it's important to help people see what's going well, right? Because I don't always want to be like, this is bad, this is horrible. So I think that's super important. So we talked about teachers, we talked about leaders, but what about the kids? If you're a kid and I don't know if all of our viewers know, you are from Jamaica. So you know, whether you're from this country, not from this country, living in a situation where you're in poverty, sometimes kids, especially when they're Black kids, they feel like I just can't achieve. And there's been a lot of conversation about critical race theory, that people think we are saying that Black people are victims and we can't do. And I want to make it clear, Educator Barnes does not believe that. I know Marlon doesn't believe that. But how do you help kids when they get in this slump and they're like, but this, but that, and you can see their potential and you can see their excellence. How do you push them to achieve at that level?
So my experience is different, right? So growing up in rural Jamaica, I never had, it was weird. I tell my kids all the time, I knew I was black, but I didn't know I was black. What I mean by that is this: in our culture, I knew I was Jamaican. It makes sense.
Yep.
I was
Mm-hmm.
part of a culture, right?
Right.
I was part. I grew up in Clarendon, right? I used to walk barefoot from my home to the corner store. Uh, we used to play soccer in the soccer field. I was Jamaican, right? I knew that, and this whole thing around color, I that did not impact me until I came to the United States.
Mm.
So I understood what this whole color gap of black, white, Hispanic, right? So if I'm going to identify you in our culture, you're going to be Jamaican or you're going to be Chinese, Cuban, right? So it wasn't really a color thing for me growing up until I came to the United States. And my first experience of like true like racism was when I got to college. And it was I don't call it racism. I think I call it we call it it's like passive aggressive behavior or right. It was weird. And my first experience was in college when I met a female doing orientation, and she was from a small rural town in Indiana, and she looked at me and she was like, "We was in these groups. I'll never forget this." And she said, "Hey, you're the first black guy I ever spoke to." And I was like, "Huh?" And when I called my mom, I said, "Mom, I'm in Indiana." She was like, "Yeah, baby." I'm like, "Oh my goodness!" And so it was. So my high school was very diverse. We have I could be eating Jamaican food one day or going next door to my friend's house eating Cuban cuisine, right? So it was very diverse and those connections came through food, right? And cultures. And so when you talk about this black excellence, then I just want to make sure I kind of share that context with me because I never experienced some of the things that some kids experience right now. So I look at everybody for who they are, right? A good friend of mine, he always talks about himself growing up in Nigeria, about how Nigeria has, well, he'll say, oh, like 60 plus languages. So you had to respect everyone for their what? Language and culture. It was the same thing in growing up in Jamaica. You had to respect people for their language and culture and what they brought to the table. Because if you didn't do that, you create some kind of conflict. We don't want to create conflict. And so this whole thing, even this whole thing of black excellence and black history and all those things. I was telling my son yesterday, I said, we have black history every day in Jamaica. It was like a month, right?
Right.
I'm learning about Marcus Garvey, right? Nelson Mandela, right? All these people. And we get a month in the United States, right? So it's it's a cultural thing, I believe. I think also it's that culture thing, Shantae, that allows me to connect with young people too. I can look at it from a different lens, right? I know what they're dealing with. I know their anxieties, but I can add more empathy to the conversation and help them to navigate and say, hey, it's all about respect. It's all about love, right? So I think from that experience of growing up in Jamaica, seeing how things kind of work, I can connect more with young people because I'm bringing the lens of empathy to our conversations.
So I hear what you're saying. You're saying that you're telling students not so much to focus on that they are black, but to
Yeah.
focus on these other aspects of themselves, showing respect, showing
Yes.
empathy,
Yes.
focusing on learning. So
Yep.
no, I thought it was super important. I mean,
Yeah.
I know you, but like I'm talking to you for our viewers, so I wanted to throw
I,
that out there because
I
that
tell
does.
kids, yeah, I tell kids all the time, yeah, you black, but now folks in the bag. What's the bag, right? Taking care of your behavior, taking care of your social life, your academics, right? Taking care of your grades. Folks in the bag, right? And you folks in the bag, everything else gonna work yourself out. But you focus on some of the distractions that are now part of the bag.
Right.
You get distracted. That makes sense. So
Right. You got
yes,
to focus on the goal and the
the
task
goal.
at hand and not get stuck. It's kind of like what you said almost for adults. Don't get stuck on all the negatives, get stuck on the positive, get stuck on what you are striving for. So, one
Correct.
of the main reasons I have Marlon on the show is that he and I are on a committee. We're on the Black Excellence in Education Awards Committee. And I think we both have been award recipients of the
Yes.
award, and now we're on the committee for the award. And I think this is year 7, I believe, for
Year
our
seven.
award.
Yep. Hmm.
7. Year 7 for our award. And each year it's gotten bigger and better and bolder. And I think, Marlon, I guess tell us a little bit about, I mean, I know, but tell our readers a little bit about why is this award a thing? Because there are people like, why do Black educators need their own award? What is that business all about? So, like, what is our why?
And so the why is this. So when I first was introduced to the awards, I was a principal at Tinley, and I got an email about joining the committee and nominating people, and I ignored the email. Right? I'm like, oh, Black Awards. Oh, another one of these awards things. Right? I ignored the email. I pressed the busy button. I'm busy. I can't really focus on that right
Mm.
now. Right? And it wasn't until I like transitioned, and I'm like, wait a minute here. We got some issues, right? I know a lot of great Black educators who are not getting the attention and the affirmation that they deserve, right?
Mm.
And so we're saying that, so the conversation started going to a pipeline. Oh, we need more Black educators in the pipeline. Need more Black leaders, right? I'm like, really? These great, amazing Black educators and leaders have always been there, but no one took the time and the effort to say, hey, let's stop for a little bit and focus on identifying and affirming those Black educators now. And so when I joined the awards 3 years ago, that was the whole premise. We need to slow down to affirm and recognize all these amazing Black educators in our school districts across the state who are doing amazing work. But they're doing that work in a silo, right? And they're doing that work like it's kind of like the Find Waldo theme, right? Where's Waldo, right? They're doing it. They're doing it in the corner, and so the awards were created to make sure we can take a time out every year and give opportunity to our school districts across the state who have Black talent to take that time to recognize and affirm their Black talent in their schools through the Black Excellence Awards. And so from now to the year 7, we have recognized and honored over 400 Black educators.
Mm.
There are a lot of people. And you're telling me, and now we have this year, say, well, now we can prove the point to you, say, hey, there are great Black talent here. We got to learn how to affirm them, recognize them for number one, and also nurture them and develop them as well. And so what we do at the awards every year, we put those amazing Black educators on the highest pedestal we can and say, hey, here's your top math teacher. Here's your top school principal, right? So we can have a voice and a presence in this educational system.
And I think the other thing that's important to note about the Black Excellence in Education Awards is that it allows us to connect with other Black educators. Because, in particular, in Indianapolis, we have 11 different school districts, plus charter schools, plus private schools,
Mm-hmm.
plus, parochial schools. There's a lot of us in different places. And I remember the year I won the award, I was a librarian. And at that time,
Mm-hmm.
there were no other Black librarians in the district that I worked in. I had been an E&L teacher, only Black E&L teacher in the whole entire district. I've been an English teacher for most of my career, and many times I was the only Black English teacher in my school building. So to be at an awards program where I'm seeing other people that look like me, I'm like, oh, I can connect, because sometimes I'm mostly taught Black students, Black or Latino students. And so I had a different lens of the type of text I want to use. But if all my colleagues are white, and I'm saying, hey, let's read this book, and they're like, well, no, we want to read this, then
Mm-hmm.
I don't have any thought partners or anybody to collaborate with. And I also would say, y'all caught me off guard the year, because let me tell y'all listeners, they told me I was coming for this little Black education
Surprise.
board. So I came. I didn't even, my husband didn't come, my kids didn't come. I just brought my mom and dad. Then I found out I was getting a whole other award for journalism, like a little plaque, and I had to come up there. I was like shocked. cool thing is, it was like the last big award that my dad saw me get before he passed away. So that was a great memory. And I had a picture taken with my dad at the awards program. And what was weird, my dad seems to know everybody. So
Mhm.
somehow my dad knew the photographer and started talking to him. So I got this really cool picture with my dad that I cherish to this day. But I think the cool thing about it, when I think about that whole experience, is this that I'm like, oh, like how you reacted when you got the first email about the award. I'm like, oh, I'm
Yeah.
just coming to this awards thing, blah, blah, blah. But then when I'm here with all these people, I'm like, wow. Like, and you hear what these other people have done, I'm like, oh, okay. I am doing something, because sometimes you just feel like you're in a silo, like you said. And we are the people that's more likely to quit education. When you look at the data, Black educators are leaving the profession and leaving quickly. We have a question, so I'm going to put this on the screen. This is from Robin Renee. She has a question for us. She says, I am actually a higher education researcher, and my interest is first generation college retention. Can you speak about reimagining college prep for this cohort and ways in which high schools and colleges can build a stronger bridge? So,
Mm.
Marlon, what do you think about this question from our viewer, Robin Renee?
That's a great question. That's a great question. Um, but I think about how do we reimagine this college prep for this core, first generation core. I think it's back to what I shared. I think I shared with Shantae around the analogy with the NFL. Right, the NFL creates an amazing pipeline because they engage kids to football as early as kindergarten. Right, and then whether those students become super athletes in high school and college, they have had an experience with the NFL and football because it started so young. And so, to your question about how we like reimagine this for this cohort, that first generation cohort, we have to start early. We have to connect young people early. I know one thing we're doing here at Marion, we have a partnership with Ivy Tech, which we are creating cadet programs, teaching cadet programs in various high schools across the state. And we're saying we're going to start early by affirming and recognize those kids as early as like fifth grade, that this student can be a great educator. So to your question around how do we reimagine that, we have to start the process early. It can't be started in high school. It definitely even at sixth grade it's a little bit too late. We have to connect those young people, those first generation young people as early as I'm thinking third grade, early, so they can start thinking and dreaming about being a college graduate. So that's an amazing question.
No, I think that's great, because I actually did cadet teaching in high school,
Yep.
Lawrence North High School, and my understanding is they still have that program going
Yep.
on today. But it can be too late. And a suggestion to you, Robin Renee, is that when I was a librarian, I did a program where I brought third graders down to the library, and they read to kindergartners. And the two benefits to this was the kindergartners were getting the opportunity to hear reading, and the third graders were able to build up their reading skills. But they were like mini, like little teachers. So they came in, I gave them instructions. They worked with the kindergarten student, and because I had a problem of I have all these kindergartens, they have all this energy, so I need like a productive thing. So I think there's little things that we can put in place for elementary up through middle school, then before you get to high school, to help with that kind of interest in college, especially when you're first generation. For me, my mom has a high school diploma. My dad has an associate's degree. But even with my dad having an associate's degree, when it came to applying to a 4-year university, I was really on my own in figuring that stuff out. And so if I didn't have the perseverance to kind of talk to, like, ask questions, I would have just probably got a job, to be completely honest. I would have got a job and just kept it moving. And so I think we really do have to have those conversations about what you need to do, especially in Indiana, the 21st Century Scholars Program. So many people miss out on that. For my non Indiana viewers, the 21st Century Scholars Program is a program where you get 4 years of free college if you stay in Indiana, if you keep, I believe it's a 2.5 GPA, but
Mm-hmm.
you have to apply in seventh or eighth grade. The only exception is if you're considered a homeless student,
Yep.
then you're allowed to enroll in high school. But a lot of kids, by the time they find out about it, it's ninth grade and they no longer can enroll. And the reason they have you enroll in seventh grade because there's things they want you to commit to. They want you to commit to making good choices and making good grades because once you're in high school, you have to keep your GPA up, and you also can't get into any type of criminal activities, right?
Mhm.
So I think a lot of times we don't do our due diligence, and I like telling kids about because money is a real barrier, and kids don't know that they qualify for free money. That is also a problem. So, Robin, thank you again for the question. I think she has one more comment for us that I'll show. She said, I definitely like to see Black professors visiting K 12 so that students see them. First generation are intimidated by professors and undergraduate. I will agree because sometimes I do teach a course or two at Marion, and I've taught a course at IUPUI, and sometimes they are scared because sometimes I always say A school isn't always an A school everywhere. So you may leave high school, let's say English, and you may not have the same proficiency as another kid who took high school English somewhere else. And so sometimes that is an intimidating process. So, Marlon, you mentioned something at the very beginning when I asked you what you were most proud of. You talked about being a husband, but you also talked about being a father. And I follow you online, and I know your son Bryce is especially doing some great things. So, thinking about the parent lens, how are you like building like not only Black excellence, but also with you being Jamaican, be like pride in your culture, because you grew up part of your life in Jamaica, but your kids are here and they still have that Jamaican heritage in their bloodline through you. So how are you building up that Black excellence? What advice could you give to Black parents about like how do you like help that excellence grow in your home?
So I laugh because my my kid will say this. They bring a Jamaican out of me when they get me mad.
Okay.
So even though I don't have an accent right now, and both they do something that's off the beaten path. It's like straight patois. It's like I'm in Kingston again with them. So I'm laughing because my daughter would tell me that when we get you mad, you just flip to be Mr. Jamaican guy. Because that was my dad growing up, like, and my grandfather. My grandfather, he cut sugar cane, right? And so as a young kid growing up, uh, we knew not to get granddad mad because this man working his butt off trying to provide for us. He's
Mm,
doing some a dangerous job as to cutting burned down fields or sugar cane to
mm.
provide for his family. And so the kids, I joke with the kids all the time. Yeah, I did pick up a grandfather to make sure he take care of stuff. But there was a book I read. You're talking about how keeping Black excellence, especially like Black for parents and students. There was a book I read a couple years ago called Raising Superman. I think you might have read the book from Nathaniel Turner. It was
Yes, I
talking
have
about
read that book.
read that book talking about how he raised his he took like a backward design approach to raise his child, his son, who's now currently, I believe, he's at Carnegie Mellon, finished up his PhD program, all paid for. But it talks about just being more intentional with our young people, and so I kind of mimic a lot of the stories and advice that the book kind of laid out for me as I raised my son and my daughter. And from the culture side of things, prior to COVID, we took vacations yearly to Jamaica so they can always stay connected to the culture. Because it's very different when you live in a predominantly white suburb, right, in Annapolis, right? You can walk your dog and go to a park, go to a neighborhood pool, right? Walk McDonald's, right? It's some convenience that you have. And then we went to Jamaica every summer. We're going to our family house, and they're seeing like, man, we got this. Is how Dad was grew up, and then so they appreciate things a little more. And so that's how I keep them connected to the to Black excellence in our culture by always visiting. And also, majority of my family resides in Florida, so we're always visiting family. Um, I'm the third grandchild of 90, right? So 90 grandchildren. And so those are fun times. Yeah, COVID ruined a lot of those times, but now we'll connect via Zoom and things in our group and our family chat. And so I connect my kids with Black excellence through our culture by showing like you mentioned earlier, that you're not a victim, right? Your grandfather worked his butt off as a sugarcane field worker, bought the adjacent property next to him, and vice versa, right? And you built out a culture built out a family of Black excellence in which you have 90 grandchildren, right? And so I just try to keep my young people, my children, very grounded and say, look, man, you're more than conquerors, right? You're kings and queens. And so if my grandfather can do that and work that hard, you can do the same thing as well and accomplish your dreams, your goals.
Did you say 90, like 90?
90 is 90 grandchildren.
Wow. Wow. I was like, I think he said 90, but I needed to
90.
clarify that. Well, I
Also,
think, go
90.
ahead.
My grandma passed away last year before COVID really hit. My grandma passed away, and I never forget it. And we counted. It's 90 of us. 90 grandchildren was in front of her casket, and they chose me of the 90 to speak as like the representative for the whole 90. And so I'm looking down, looking at my grandma's casket, looking over the pew, looking at the people that packed out her church, and there's 90 of us. And I'm like, man, job well done, lady, right? Right? I'm like, and you start, and I'm looking at I'm seeing my son, I'm looking like, man, okay, God, I know what you're doing, right? Job well done. Job well done. So
No, that is awesome. And I think you touched on a point about like knowing your family history,
yeah.
because even though there's trials and tribulations in being Black in America, there's always great things. A few years back, I learned that my family on my mom's mother's side owned a hotel in Mississippi back in the day. And I'm like, owned. I was like, that's pretty cool. And so just to know there's like people in your family that's done great things, that have sacrificed. And it's like, if they can do it, like this is in our blood. Like this is what our family does. This is not something that you have to worry about. Like you have people in your family that will help you out. So I also think it's important to know your history and know your culture, because that gives you the confidence to be able to strive for excellence. And I also think it's important that we talk about the diaspora and talk about the different culture, because like sometimes as an African American, sometimes you feel like you don't know what your culture is, you know? You kind of, we have an African American culture. You have stuff like soul food. You have things that's considered like Black if you're in America. But I think that cultural piece is super important, because knowing who you are, where you come from, who's in your family, gives you the confidence to know, like, I come from greatness, so therefore I will go out and be great. So, Marlon, can you tell us? I don't think we told the viewers, when is the Black Excellence Award, and then how can people like who can nominate, and how can people nominate people for the Black Excellence in Education Award?
So this year, Black Excellence Award will be held in conjunction with the In the Power conference. In the Power is a social entrepreneurship company that's focused on what we just talked about: Black excellence in education, entrepreneurship, tech. And so Emil Ikior, the founder and CEO, we're all a part of this big conference in June. And so the Black Excellence in Education Awards will be held June 13th. It's a Monday, June 13th at Ivy Tech campus downtown by Meridian from 4 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. At this ceremony, we will recognize all our winners this year. They'll be recognized, they'll be invited, and it's a really amazing time. It'll be our first time doing it in person since COVID. We did it virtually for 2 years. And so we're just super excited to get back together and celebrate Black excellence together. And so on that day, it'll be a very festive and also very emotional time for a lot of people, because it's the first time we all can gather again together in one space. And so June 13th at Ivy Tech. So the question about how do you nominate? Nominations has been sent out to all our local school districts. And so if you're someone that says, "Hey, I had a great experience with a teacher," or my child had a great experience with a teacher, shoot your superintendent email, shoot your principal an email, say, "Hey, this award is happening. I want to make sure you nominate Miss Jones for this award," right? So you can do your part as well by encouraging our local school districts to nominate a Black Excellence in Education teacher.
Well, thank you for letting us know about that. So please, 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 if you know a teacher, reach out. And I'm on the committee, and we do our due diligence of sending this to every place.
Everybody.
So don't let anybody be letting you think that they didn't get it because we sent it. so so it's out there. Marlon, I'm gonna give you the big screen.
Oh, the big
Um,
screen. Okay.
and uh, boy, you made me lose my thought. So this is what happened when you talk to somebody like because then they didn't
The
get you
big
all
screen.
off your game. But it's okay. So, Marlon, final thoughts about Black excellence in education and anything that you want to share or promote.
But so thank you. I'm on the big screen now, everybody. Ooh. And so thank you. So I think, once again, thank you to the Braves and Education Podcast. I just wanted to share, as you shared earlier, I'm Director of Recruitment and Strategic Partnerships here at Marion University and Eclipse Educators College. So we have two events coming up. This is a big recruitment cycle for us, and so we have two events. We have our doctoral info session coming up. That day is March 8th from 6 p.m. To 7 p.m. Everything's virtual, so I encourage everyone who have an interest in learning or earning a doctoral degree. Check out Marion. I encourage you to check out the website, and also we have for our teachers and our leaders, we have our teacher and leadership info session, right? We have our MAT program, our TET program, and also we have our leadership program as well. In those webinars and info sessions will be Wednesday, March 9th. All the information is on our website at Marion, Marian, marion.edu. So check out our website. Marion University is a teacher university or an educational prep university. We want to make sure people that are listening to the podcast and across the city know that if you want to be an amazing rock star educator, Marion is a place to be. So check out our website. And lastly, I'll be remiss not to once again thank Dr. Barnes for this opportunity, but also everyone who's listening. Don't give up. As I shared earlier, we stand on the shoulders of giants, and my big giant was my grandfather who did his hardest to provide for 8 children. And so as we stand on these shoulders and these giants, make sure we're doing our part and make sure we're not giving up, make sure we're always pushing forward, and make sure we're always leading with Black excellence. And so that's all I have, Dr. Barnes. That's all I have for the podcast. And finally, always lead with love. That's it. That's it. That's it. Lead with love.
And I also can give a recommendation. I did my admin program through Marion University. And what I loved about it was the opportunity to do a lot of self work and reflection because admin work is people work. Like people think if you think it's just like telling people what to do, that is not what leadership is at all. It's working with people. And also, Marlon always calls me Dr. Barnes because I'm in my doctoral program. He's speaking it into existence. My goal is to finish either at the end of 2023 or the beginning of 2024. So I just wanted to note that. So he speaks that.
And she always does that to me. Right? I gotta explain herself.
Well, I don't want people to be out here like you a doctor.
I ain't speaking it into existence. Like I just know you. I've been blessed to know you for the past 4 years. And I'm like, look, you're doing amazing work. And so I want to make sure I always affirm you and celebrate you too. So Dr.
Thank
Barnes.
you so much. Well, guys, thanks for listening, and we will see you on the next episode.
Thank you so much.